Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 336. My name is Adam Patterson. With me today, Mr. Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, hi.
Hope everyone's having a wonderful Labor Day holiday in the U.S. This week on the show, we'll be doing a retro review, which is either the first time that we've done a retro review, or it's possible that it's been so long since we did a retro review that I forgot we ever did one before.
Yeah, I think we did Possession.
I remember doing Possession, but I didn't know if that was like a Halloween type theme or something.
It could have been. But this came down to, I don't know how it worked out for you, but I checked what was coming out that we could cover. There was absolutely nothing. But yet we haven't done a show in a couple of weeks, it seems. So we had to do something. And you tell them what it is. What are we doing?
So this past week, Vinegar Syndrome released a newly remastered version of Hell Comes To Frogtown from 1988. So we'll be taking a look at Hell Comes To Frogtown. We'll also be taking a look at some of them watching on the watch list, going over this week's new releases in theaters, VOD, and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember to please consider reviewing us on iTunes if you get a chance. That'd be incredible. Before we head over to Frogtown, I just have a couple housekeeping bits to go over. First, no Ryan watches a movie this week. He just didn't want to do it. I don't know what his deal was this week. He was just like, nope, not this week.
Honestly, I think it's the Ubiquity thing.
Oh yeah. So just some behind the scenes stuff. Ryan bought, because of Kevin's constant internet woes, Ryan bought him an access point for his house, and Kevin hasn't hooked it up yet. And
it just showed up. It just showed up one day.
Oh yeah.
Which is a new thing that Ryan does this year, is just buys things and ships it to me without telling me.
It's a nice surprise.
It is.
Well, yeah, Kevin hasn't hooked it up yet, obviously, because as you can hear, he's on the phone still. And I guess Ryan wasn't happy about that, maybe.
Yeah. I have a feeling that's what it was.
In your defense, though, you had to order parts. Like you...
I did.
You were...
I didn't know. I probably should have looked into it earlier. It was one of those things that I was like, yeah, I have 2 Ethernet cables. Of course I do. I have a box of a ton of cables. There's 2 Ethernet cables in there. There has to be. So I get, all set up to do this, and none of those cables are Ethernet cables. I have no idea how, but they're not.
Yeah, well... I mean, you made an attempt. Like the day after you got it, you were texting me trying to get it, like set it up. So I mean, it's not like you were slacking on it. Anyway,
whatever.
So no Ryan watches the movie this week. Hopefully, we'll be back with that next week. If you haven't listened to the August episode of Saved by the 90s, be sure to check that out. An episode came out in the last, so we were off on this show for 2 weeks, so it came out during that time. It's music themed, so we talk about 4 August movies that are music themed, including Pump Up the Volume, The Commitments, Airheads, and Detroit Rock City. So that was a fun discussion, and we also talk about the history behind the Now That's What I Call Music series,
Ooh.
Which hit the States in 1998. Now that's what I call music.
I remember those.
They're still around. Surprisingly.
Oh, sure they are.
They're at volume 71 in the US right now. Yeah.
Incredible.
I also released a video review of the new Blair Witch game that came out this past weekend. So check that out if you're interested. I want to do more of these kind of video game reviews. I did them a while back, and then I sort of pulled away, but I just got this new gaming PC, so I want to start doing relevant video game reviews again, ones that at least somewhat pertain to movies. I'm working on another one right now, so I did Blair Witch, and that game is actually not horrible. It's pretty decent. I'm working on another one right now for the new Supermassive Games release called Men of Medan, which is it's a horror story written by Larry Fessenden.
Okay.
And that's another one it's okay. It's not on the same level as Until Dawn, which was their other big sort of narrative-driven horror story. But it's okay. I mean, it's based on not a true story, but it's an urban legend. A lot of people think that it actually happened, involving this ship in the late 40s that there was like a distress signal and everyone on the ship mysteriously died, and they're not exactly sure what happened. So,
Nice.
yeah, I did some research surrounding the true story, and it's pretty fascinating. So anyway, I hope to have that video up by tomorrow, maybe. Yeah, I would say definitely by Tuesday. Try to have that up. With that, I think we can jump into Hell Comes to Frogtown. So this is directed by Donald G. Jackson and R.J. Kaiser. Stars Roddy Piper as Sam Hell. I have a synopsis here. Yeah. After a nuclear war, the survivors are divided between horribly mutated beings who live on desolate reservations and fertile women who are searching for scarce virile men in order to multiply and start a new human society. Oh, boy. If that synopsis does not hook you, I don't know what would, honestly.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, I didn't really even know. I didn't read the synopsis before going into this. I was just kind of like, post-apocalyptic movie, Roddy Piper. It's a New World Pictures movie, so I was already kind of sold on that. So I was already sold, but you bring in the rest, and it's like, holy crap, what is going on here?
Yeah, because I didn't really know about that stuff either until I started watching it, and they started explaining what's happening in this new world. I was just like, oh boy.
Yeah, I went through a whole
I was not prepared for this.
Yeah, I went through like sort of a whole roller coaster of emotions with that, because at first I was just like, that sounds like a funny premise, and then when like they find the first fertile woman, I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no, no. But after that, then it kind of got goofy again. So Roddy Piper is a criminal. So he's in jail. The movie starts with him strapped to a chair getting like beaten. And I guess he's in a prison. And he's in prison for sexual assault. Apparently he's just going around, I guess, sexually assaulting women all over the place. And I don't know, like, because later they find, like, after they discover that he's like one of the only virile men, it seems like maybe he's women are like throwing themselves at him so that they can get pregnant.
Yes, his whole backstory is it's very unclear, because you're right. They introduce him as, in jail for sexual assault. Then MedTech comes to get him out, and they're like, oh, she changed her story because she found out she was pregnant.
Yeah, I never quite had a handle on the backstory and how it was all playing out. If he was like actually, because it seemed like he didn't even know that he was even able to impregnate women. So I'm totally unclear as to like if the main protagonist of this film is a rapist or not. That's what I'm not so sure about.
Yes. And
I mean, well, to be clear, he is, because they essentially, after they find the first female, they basically force him to have sex with her. And I wouldn't call that consensual.
No.
They give her this drug, and I can't remember what they called the drug, but it essentially just makes her horny. It's like a horny drug.
Yeah, just uncontrollable.
But the funny thing is, like, at the end, the next day, she's like all cleaned up and she's like on the team after that. And it's like, does this excuse it all of a sudden? Like, does this excuse what they've done? I'm not so sure.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all.
In the context of the movie, like we're supposed to be okay with this.
Yeah, and the other thing is just that like it does have some tricky themes in here, especially the fact that it's like the medtech, which is a part of the government, which is part of the military, and their whole role is that essentially his Roddy Piper's penis becomes a tool that's owned by the government, and it has to do what the government wants it to do, which is impregnate women. And then on top of that, medtech, and I guess it's part of the American way now, is that any woman that can get pregnant has to. Like, no one is asking these women if they want to get pregnant. They're just like, we're going to catch you. We're going to give you the horny pill, and then we're going to impregnate you. And that's it. You have no say in the matter whatsoever.
Yeah, it feels very reminiscent of The Handmaid's Tale. Actually, there's definitely some Handmaid's Tale vibes going on in here, just with frog people added.
Yes,
it's like Handmaid's Tale with frog people.
Yeah, but it's also, interestingly enough, and this is like one of the main reasons that I'm kind of happy that we watched this movie, is it's Mad Max Fury Road. It's really bizarre. Like, the whole ending is essentially that movie.
Yeah.
And
yep.
even what's her name looks like Furiosa, Centinella.
Yep.
And you have the chase in the desert, and he's getting out, a harem of the frog guys' wives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's pretty much Fury Road.
It's really bizarre how similar the two are. You have desert chases. It's very, very much a post-apocalyptic world. Like, when he goes to Frogtown, it feels like that. The town, the little city in Fury Road. It's just incredibly similar.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to say Fury Road was ripping off Hell Comes to Frogtown, but
it definitely got its initial idea from Hell Comes to Frogtown. There's no way it didn't.
Yeah, they're and the other thing so Roddy Piper, I think, was perfectly suited for this role. I think he's great, and I wish he was in more comedic roles, but his role in this was similar to his role in They Live, where he's just this kind of everyman who is thrust into this ridiculous situation, and I just loved his reactions to pretty much everything that was happening around him. I just thought that all of his reactions were so funny.
And that's another thing about this movie is, like, tonally, it's a bit bizarre. I guess maybe in 1988 he just didn't realize how it came off, the entire storyline. That makes it kind of very serious and unsettling. And then when the frog people, the greenies, get introduced, they're even more bizarre. And then there's just very odd interactions. It's like it's at certain times it almost felt like a TV show. Like when he had the chainsaw,
mm-hmm.
the eye patched, frog bull, and he just goes, "You know what? You're weird." She's like, "What the?"
So it should be mentioned that because his dick is the property of MedTech, he has this like metal loincloth thing on that he has to stay within a certain distance away from his handler, Spangle. And if he gets so far away to a certain distance, it'll explode. It'll blow up his dick. And that I was kind of at one point he gets it gets cut off, and the loincloth, that is not his dick. And I was kind of hoping that they would just leave it on the whole time. It's pretty ridiculous. Like you said, a lot of the jokes don't necessarily fit with the movie's tone overall. Like I think it's pretty much the whole thing is played for laughs, but watching it in 2019, it's like, there's some really serious subject matter in here that maybe in 1988 in less sensitive times it could have been laughed off, but watching it today you're just like I don't know about all this.
Man, it is a bizarre movie because the whole him essentially getting forced enlisted into the army wing of MedTech and having his penis be owned by the U.S. military, and that it's essentially like his role as a soldier is to just impregnate women. Like that's enough right there. And then at a certain point, there's frog people. Okay.
Yeah.
They throw frog people in.
Which I gotta say, I was pretty impressed with the makeup work.
I was too.
I thought that the
Very
frog
impressed.
people looked really good as far as they were like slimy and kind of gross, and the like articulation on the eyes and the mouth movement and stuff it all looked really good. I mean, this is presumably a very low budget movie, and I thought that they did a lot. They did what they could with it, but I thought that like all of the creature stuff was good.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it wasn't embarrassing to me because they're not introduced, early on. They take their time to introduce the frog people, and I was very, very curious because given everything that I've seen up until that point, I'm assuming that when the frog people show up, it's going to be embarrassing, and they're going to look kind of ridiculous. And I got to say, I was quite surprised.
Yeah,
because that was professional work right there.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a number of really awkward sort of attempted sex scenes involving Roddy Piper as well. Like this dude is just getting seduced nonstop through this whole movie, and one of the frog women seduces him. He has her put a giant burlap sack over her head.
Yeah, especially later when he's like, "I really owe you," and she pulls out the burlap sack, and he's just like, "Not now." It's just the comedy in this thing. Oh boy,
it's really hit or miss. I mean, the actual jokes didn't really land for me. It was more just Roddy Piper's reactions that made me laugh.
Yes,
but overall, I mean, I'd recommend giving it a look. Like on like a Sunday afternoon.
Next Sunday afternoon after church.
Yeah.
Popped in Hell Comes to Frogtown.
I had fun with it. Despite the glaring flaws. I mean, it's not.
Oh yeah.
You know what to.
But it does.
You go into a movie like this with certain expectations.
Yeah, but there is something there that's like deeply unsettling because you could see it with the American government rounding up virile men in order to impregnate women forcibly to start a new society. But it's a weird thing. Whose idea was it for the frog people? How did the frog people get added to this?
It should be noted that it was as a result of multiple nuclear bombs going off that created the frog people.
And that's the other thing I like is they don't explain that. They're just like, they turned into frogs. they're just human-sized frogs that can talk. I don't know what that has to do with nuclear weapons. I don't know what sort of chemical reaction happens to turn humans into frogs.
The mutants were all the rage back then. Remember how big mutants were? I mean, just all throughout like the 80s and even into the 90s, everything was all about toxic waste and mutations.
Oh, yeah. It makes sense, considering the history there. But it's just, for me, to come down on frogs, like they're not really mutants in the sense of like what I think of as a mutant. They're just frogs that can now talk, human-sized. Like there's no like you don't really see like a human aspect to them outside of them talking and knowing English. They're just full frog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anthropomorphized
Yeah.
frogs.
They're not
It
like half frog, half person.
choices were made. I don't know. Choices were made to make them frog people. They did make a sequel to this as well. It's called Frogtown 2.
But there looks to be a lot of Frogtown,
Well,
unless
I
these
don't
are just other things.
yeah, I don't know if the other ones are like official. Because there's Frogtown 2 and that's like a straight up sequel with Sam Hell in it, the same character, but it is Sam Hell's played by Robert Zadar of
Oh, boy.
of Maniac Cop fame. So I don't know
I
about.
gotta say that poster's pretty phenomenal.
Oh yeah, and then there's Frog Warrior, and then there's Toad Warrior. Now Frog Warrior is this is not this is a completely separate thing. I mean, I think maybe they were like ripping off Hell Comes to Frogtown, but the name of it is
Yeah, but
Max Hell Frog Warrior. It came out in 2002, and I implore everyone listening to watch the trailer for this movie on IMDb because it is incredible.
but the crazy thing is, I think it's the same director.
Is it?
I think so. Yes.
It is. You're right. Yeah, Donald G. Jackson.
So he ended up doing Toad Warrior. Damn, he has a movie called Roller Gator. Are you kidding me?
His
Dude, this guy.
he directed Max Hell Frog Warrior under the name Maximo T. Bird.
Oh my god, this guy's a new hero.
Any final thoughts on Hell Comes to Frogtown before we give this a score?
Like you, it's worth a look. For me, it's worth a look just in the sense of Fury Road. Because I think you'll kind of be astonished. Fury Road came from Hell Comes to Frogtown. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the similarities are uncanny.
Yeah.
All right. I should mention this is now out on Blu-ray. Vinegar Syndrome released a limited edition of this. I think that all the Vinegar Syndrome stuff is limited editions. There's 3,000 units. According to their website, there's 500 left, over 500 left in stock, so you can still pick this up. It is a newly scanned and restored 4K version from its 35 millimeter negatives, and it looked good. I thought that the restoration was pretty solid in it. There is an audio commentary with Donald G. Jackson in there and writer-producer Randall Frakes. Now, that commentary must be old, though, because according to IMDb, Donald G. Jackson died in 2003.
Okay.
So I don't think that's a new commentary. So they must have pulled that from a previous release. But there's some other bonus features on there too, including an extended scene, trailers, and all that stuff, and additional interviews. So I'd say it's worth picking up. It's $28, which that's a little pricey for this movie, but at the same time, a lot of these sort of niche releases are about that much. I mean, that's still cheaper than most Arrow releases. All right, let's give it a score. What are you going to give Hell Comes to Frogtown?
In all honesty, I have no fucking clue.
I don't know what to give this either. That's why I asked you first. I was like, okay, well, I'll see what Kevin says, and then I'll just quickly base his score around him. I might go like a 5.5. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Sometimes with some of these movies, it's just like, it's like the movie's not good, but I had fun watching it. So, yeah, I don't know, maybe like a 5.5.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tricky movie.
It is. It's a tricky beast.
It's a tricky one.
All right.
God.
Let's go over some of what I've been watching. I have no idea whose turn it is, so we can start with you if you'd like.
We can start with me because I have a movie from 1968. It's called The Swimmer. Okay, Burt Lancaster, directed by Frank Perry. This is based on a John Cheever short story. All right. Now, I didn't really know anything about this. This is on Amazon Prime. This is a Sunday afternoon. Just pop a movie on. Just pick one at random. Pick The Swimmer, right? So Burt Lancaster shows up, and he just dives in this guy's pool, and they're so happy to see him. And they're like, "Oh, Nettie, where you been?" And they're talking, they're catching up, and he just keeps talking about the pool, and he said, people got to swim with him. He needs to swim, and then he finds out other people got pools in the neighborhood, and he's kind of looking out over the vista, and he's like, oh, he maps it out. He notices that there is a line of swimming pools the whole way back to his house. So what he can do is he can swim the whole way home. Okay. Now, before he verbalized this, I was just kind of like, I was finding it ridiculous and kind of funny. I was like, this guy just won't shut up about swimming. It's kind of ridiculous. And I said, I really hope that all this movie is just him being obsessed with swimming. And my wife goes, that's exactly what this movie is. And my jaw dropped. Because why would a movie like that exist? But it does. And it's fucking incredible. I mean, it's really ridiculous because he like, and of course it's tied into like him going down like memory lane, and he's everyone in his neighborhood that he's meeting, but something's kind of off because he's a guy that's decided to swim in everyone's swimming pools the whole way back home. Like, I don't know what was happening in the 60s that the ending of this movie could come as a shock that something is not right in his life when he's introduced as a guy that can't shut up about swimming and decides to swim in everyone's swimming pool the whole way home. Because right off the bat, you're like, well, he's off his rocker. He's crazy. But of course, that was supposed to be like a reveal at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's something else because like halfway home, these are really rich people, by the way. So the one property has like an equestrian park type deal. So he just pretends to be a horse for like 8 minutes. He's just running around, jumping over the stuff. There's music playing. He is having the time of his life. It's something else. Yeah, I mean, you have to see it to believe it. I can't believe it exists, to be honest.
This sounds so crazy.
It's bizarre to me that there's a short story that exists with this premise, but then someone read that story and said, "I'm gonna turn that into a movie." Man, you gotta check it out.
I definitely will. Yeah, that's The Swimmer. I saw Cruising from William Friedkin. This is from 1980. This recently got the Arrow video treatment. Came out on Blu-ray. This is a new 4K restoration, and it's the only authorized version from William Friedkin. So according to him on Twitter, all the other releases of this movie are shit, and this is the one that you should get. It's the only one that he has approved, and it's a incredible remaster. I mean, it looks so good. This movie, it looks brand new when you see it. The restoration was so well done. And I mean, Arrow usually does good restorations, but usually they're not like on Criterion level. But man, this one was so good. So the movie, if you're not familiar, stars Al Pacino as a cop who goes undercover in New York's S&M leather scene, and in order to find a serial killer who's been killing gay men in the city. And the movie's fine. The movie's all right. What's almost more interesting, in fact, I would say it is more interesting, is just all of the backstory behind this movie and like how Friedkin made it and the controversy surrounding it and all of that stuff. Like, so there is a book called Cruising that this has been adapted from, but Friedkin kind of inserted his own stories in there. One of which and this was like completely new to me. I didn't know anything about this. Was one of the people who he hired to be a medical examiner in the movie The Exorcist turned out who was like an actual assistant, like medical examiner.
Mm-hmm.
He turned out to be a serial killer. And
What?
and he was killing and dismembering people and dumping them in the Hudson River. And he got caught. And he inserted that storyline into this movie. And then the other thing is, like, one of the consultants that he has, who's a detective, actually did this exact same thing. It's based on his life story, where he actually did go undercover in New York's S&M scene in order to find an actual serial killer who was roaming the streets of New York during this time.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, so the backstory behind it is like just absolutely fascinating. And also, this is the first movie that was ever shot in a real working morgue.
Really?
Yeah, it was never done before, because they obviously, due to like sensitivity issues, you know, sensitivity issues with like people bodies that might be down there and stuff. And apparently, and I don't remember this because like I didn't learn that until I listened to the commentary and I wasn't really paying attention, but apparently you can see some like body parts and stuff that are actually real body parts in the scene. And the person who worked there ended up getting fired because of that.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So there's just, and then that's just like some of the crazy things. I mean, there were like all these protests that happen. And when you see the movie, you'll realize that a lot of it's dubbed. And I always kind of wondered, like, why did they dub so much of this? And the reason was because there were constant protests during the shoot, and the protesters would interrupt shooting by, like, they would chant, they would yell things, they would have megaphones, and they would just scream things. They would they would bring giant mirrors to the set and reflect the sun to try to fuck up the lighting or fuck up the shot.
Wow.
And so yeah, so they ended up like redubbing like redoing all of the dialogue, or a lot of the dialogue in the movie, in post, because you can hear people protesting in the background. So anyway, I would definitely recommend picking this up on Blu-ray. There's a brand new commentary track from William Friedkin that is just fascinating. The other special features are a little light. I was kind of hoping that there would be more. One thing that Arrow started doing recently was taking you to the like various locations that movies are shot, and I wish they did that with this one, but they didn't. They did it with a couple of their newer discs, and I don't know, for some reason I find that to be really interesting, just to see like where, like, what they look like now, what specific places and stuff look like. They did it with Alice, Sweet Alice, and I thought that was really cool. Anyway, definitely recommend picking up Cruising.
I saw the Farewell, 2019. The Farewell, Lulu Wang. This was oddly enough, this was playing in a theater here. I'm not sure how that happened.
Yeah, I know it got a wide release.
Surprised the hell out of me. Just happened to be checking those movie times, and it said The Farewell. And I had to double check and make sure it was the right movie, and it was. So I got to see it. And I don't want to say that it was a letdown per se, but slightly, in that, you know, it's an A24 movie, and they have that hype machine where pretty much everything that I heard or had read about The Farewell was that it's unbelievable, absolutely incredible. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's not anything special. It's not going to blow your mind. It's just a well-made movie, and it has some good performances in there. The main one of which is Zhao Shuzhen, who plays the grandmother that's lied to, and she's incredible. She's really funny. She brings a lightness to the film, and just an absolute joy to watch. She's very humorous, and what, you know, the whole, if you don't know about this movie, is her family knows that she's dying, but they don't tell her, and then they decide to have a quote unquote wedding. They fake a wedding, which is kind of their excuse to all go back to China and see her one last time. So she thinks everyone's just coming to have this wedding. So she's, kind of taking care of the wedding and entertaining everyone and hosting everyone while they're there trying to grapple with the fact that she's going to die soon. And it does touch on some things in a very poignant way at times. Specifically, there's a nice little exchange about the differences with like grief and suffering between the West and the East, and kind of like the reasoning behind not telling your grandmother that she's dying, which I thought worked out really well. But it's my fault. It's my fault in letting that shit happen to me again, where I'm like, oh, this thing's going to be incredible. It's going to blow my mind. It's just a good movie.
Yeah, that's what I heard. My wife saw it and said pretty much the ssame thing. Like, yeah, it's good. And I had another friend who saw it, and he said the same thing. He was like, yeah, it's pretty good. Like, he wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know why I keep letting that happen to me. And it only happens occasionally, but with very specific films for some reason.
Not everything has to be a 10 out of 10.
But that's all anyone does now. Everything's like a 10 out of 10 or it's a 0 out of 10.
Yeah, that's definitely how it is in the video game world. Like, if you look at video game reviews and the discourse over video games, it's either 10 out of 10 or it's garbage trash.
Yeah.
There's no in between. Like I always said, it's okay to have a 6 or 7 out of 10. Like, those are perfectly serviceable. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So I guess sticking with the theme of life and the end of life and living your life, I watched the Up series.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I binged the Up series over the course of 1 week. I saw all of them. So I saw some of these previously. I think maybe the first 3, but I couldn't quite remember. The only one I actually had logged on Letterboxd was the first one. And I suspect, looking back now, that maybe I didn't log them because they're actually sort of TV shows. And I was like really, really strict about that at first. But I ended up logging them because I don't know. They're kind of, I kind of consider them movies.
You invested so much time.
I did. So I saw all of them from 7 all the way up to the new one that came out, which is 63. So if you're not familiar with the series, it is a documentary series that follows the lives of 15 people, and they catch up with them every 7 years of their lives, and just they sort of ask them the same questions, like, where are you working? What's your like relationship status like? And then when they got older, they asked them about like kids and like, where do you want to be in 7 years and stuff like that. So sort of like they kind of ask them the same questions every time, and then you just catch up with them. And it's just, these are like mostly normal people, but the whole kind of hypothesis of the project was that the sample set was, you had some really, really, really rich kids, and you had some really, really, really poor kids, and then you had some kids in the middle. And their hypothesis was that even though these kids are all the same age, they're not given the same opportunities in life. And they kind of theorized that the really rich kids are going to end up with better lives than the really poor kids. And whether or not they ended up with better lives, I think is up for debate. I'm sure that, they do ask some of the people who grew up in poor families, and they are happy in their lives for the most part. And so they might not have as much money, like obviously the rich people ended up going to top universities. They went to like Oxford and ended up with law degrees, and they have houses in London, and then they have giant country homes and stuff, and all of this. And some of the kids who grew up in poor neighborhoods and stuff, the one kid grew up in slums, some of those people don't have nice things, and they ended up not going to university, and they ended up driving a cab or just doing odd jobs perhaps most interestingly is one guy named Neil. He was mentally ill and he ended up homeless, and his journey may be the most interesting of them, but still a really fascinating journey to take, to sort of binge. Kind of an emotional roller coaster too. This
I can imagine.
It really kind of puts it into perspective, like how fleeting life really is when you zoom through someone's life from the time they're 7 to the time they're 63. It's a pretty incredible experience. Only, well, maybe that's, I don't know if I want to talk about the current status of them, but like, I likened watching this series to like getting a dog, where it's like, there's going to be an inevitable conclusion that's tragic.
Yeah.
But it's like, you got to think about, am I going to come out of this being a better person or gaining something? And is it worth it to go through that? And with this series, I think it is, just on a sociological level. So anyway, that's the Up series. If you are on Amazon Prime, there is a channel that you can sign up for called BritBox, and they have the whole series on there. So sign up for BritBox. They don't have the latest one. They don't have the latest one yet, but it's coming very soon. I just got an email about it.
Gotcha.
So I just signed up for a trial, cranked them all out, dumped the trial.
You actually remembered to dump it, though.
No, I didn't actually.
No, you never will.
I did. No, I did dump it. I did dump it, but I remembered too late. So like so they did charge me for a month of it, which is like $6 or $7.
I would like to meet. Has anyone ever done that successfully?
I don't think so. I keep telling myself that I'm going to get rid of my New York Times subscription, and I just keep.
Yeah, I think 3 years ago I signed up for Amazon Prime around the holidays with the intent on dumping it after Christmas, and then 3 years later I'm still paying for this fucking thing.
Well, for me at least, Prime's worth it because I use the features of Prime a lot.
Yeah, I imagine it's different, but here, you get 2-day shipping, but it'll just take 7 days, because what the fuck are you going to do about it? You can't do anything about it.
Well, see, I live like a block and a half away from their distribution, one of their distributors, their centers or whatever, so I get same day or next day shipping.
Ridiculous.
And it's great.
Yeah, mine is just whenever you fucking get it, dude.
You get it when you get it. Shut up.
It's not our fault you live in Elizabethtown, fucker.
I'll just mention one more, and that's Ready or Not. I was pretty excited about this one, and it did not let me down. I really enjoyed Ready or Not. If you're not familiar, if you haven't seen trailers for this, it's essentially about a bride who marries into this wealthy board gaming family. They have a gaming dominion, as they call it, and on the eve of their wedding night, she has to play a game. And as it turns out, the game is hide and seek. And the goal is for all of the family members to try to kill her before dawn, or else something terrible will befall the family. It's really funny. It goes to some really interesting places. It's very gruesome and violent. And I had an absolute blast with it. I thought Samara Weaving is great in it. She was in what was that movie? Mayhem. She was really great in Mayhem too. So if you haven't seen Mayhem, I would highly recommend that one as well. Andie MacDowell's in there. She plays the sort of matriarch of the family, and Adam Brody's in there too, and he's pretty good in it as well. So definitely recommend checking out Ready or Not. Kevin, I think you'll enjoy this one.
Really?
I do, yeah. Good time.
Wow.
It's a really good time.
Surprising.
Yeah, it goes to some kind of unexpected places.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for this, and it's just like, I don't know, I wasn't into it.
When I first saw the trailer, I was like, thinking to myself, this feels like a VOD release. Like it doesn't seem like a wide theatrical release, but in seeing it, I can understand why it's quite good. All right, let's take a look at what we have in theaters this week. We got a big one that I'm very excited for. That's It Chapter 2.
Oh, yeah.
You excited? Come on.
Mildly.
Come on.
Mildly. I like it more when they're kids, not when they're grown up.
Yeah, but it looks like they're bringing the kids back for this one, so there's at least going to be some scenes with them as kids.
Exactly. But I also just learned of this film's runtime yesterday. It's like just under 3 hours.
Really?
Which seems a bit much for me.
Well, the original miniseries was pretty effing long too. The book's huge too, if I remember correctly. The book is massive.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I'll be seeing it. So we're going to be covering it.
All right.
So get ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. That's really the big release for this week.
Right.
We also have a film called Edie, something called The Night Hunter. Currently has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Ooh.
Looks like Ben Kingsley's in it. I'm not even familiar with what this is at all. It's Henry Cavill and Ben Kingsley, Stanley Tucci, Nathan Fillion is in there, and Alexandra Daddario. So
a bunch of people are doing a favor here. Seems like.
This is one of these Saban films, and I feel like this is the same company that released Domino.
Okay.
And it looks like it's kind of in that same vein.
So they're kind of like a charity, it seems like.
I don't know. Saban Films seems pretty like they're kind of mid-tier, but like all of their stuff seems to be not great, like not very good. So that's pretty much it for theatrical releases. All right, VOD. This week we got 6 Hot Chicks in a Warehouse. That is the real title of this real movie.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah. Epic. Pretty epic poster for this one, too. 6 Hot Chicks in a Warehouse.
Unbelievable.
We have Gags the Clown. This is a found footage horror movie that I do not recommend. I saw this at Cinepocalypse, I think, last year, and I couldn't stand it. Debunkers, Inc. This looks like some kind of wacky comedy. Their favorite subject is a mystery.
And they're going to debunk it.
They're going to debunk that.
Incorporated style.
Ha.
Get it?
I do.
Good.
Dragon Kingdom coming out. It's a whole kingdom of dragons. The battle for a kingdom has begun. Woo. To save their kingdom from the Dark Lord's army, a mighty and courageous legion of warriors must travel through the Forbidden Lands, fighting the fearsome, fire-breathing monsters of the Dark Kingdom, a land that swallows all who enter in order to rescue their king.
How many times did they utilize kingdom?
A lot.
It sounded like you said it like 14 times.
Many times.
Wow.
Yeah. Clownado comes out.
What'd you say?
Clownado.
Why are there 2 clown movies?
I don't know, man. Cursed demonic circus clowns set out on a vengeful massacre using tornadoes.
What?
Yep. Movies like this just don't work. These ones that are like intentionally stupid.
No, they never do.
Tagline is, it's about to get twisted.
Because of the tornadoes.
Mm-hmm.
I gotcha.
Yep.
I gotcha.
Linnea Quigley's in there. Haven't seen her in anything for quite a while. All right. So those were all on the 3rd. On the 5th, we have The Wrath. This is a Shudder exclusive. This looks pretty good, actually. Kind of into this. Supernatural creeper set in 14th century Korea.
Okay.
I think it might be a remake, but it looks pretty decent. On the 5th, also on the 5th, we have Low Tide. This will be on DirecTV. So if you have DirecTV, you can check it out. I think it hits theaters later. On the 6th, we have, I guess it's K through 12, K-12. This is the one that's, it's a musical film written, directed, and starring Melanie Martinez. Are you familiar with this at all?
No, I'm not.
I don't know about the movie itself, but the visual style of it is very intriguing to me. I checked out the trailer and I was kind of interested in it just for the trailer. The movie, I'm not so sure. Like, I don't know a lot about Melanie Martinez. I've heard a few of her songs, but I don't really follow her, so I don't know what to think about this. I'm kind of digging the style, though. I know that much.
Okay. There you go. That's something to start.
Yeah. The Fanatic is coming out. This is the one that hit theaters this weekend. It's the one with John Travolta, directed by Fred Durst. Directed by Fred Durst and starring John Travolta and Devon Sawa.
Mm-hmm.
And John Travolta looks so ridiculous in this movie. I have to see this. I absolutely have to see this movie.
The wardrobe choices for him are just
incredible.
Pretty fantastic. Yeah.
Incredible. And that haircut too. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Chris reviewed this for us and he gave it a 6.5 and he was kind of into it. I have a feeling that I'm going to really hate it, but it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah.
We also have Satanic Panic on Friday.
That's the new title, I think. I don't know how many times I sit in this room, do this podcast, and I hear you say that title.
I don't think I've mentioned that. I mean, I mentioned it once.
It feels like 5 weeks straight now.
I know that I mentioned it once before when I actually saw it, but I don't know if I mentioned it any other times. I don't remember mentioning it any other times. At any rate, I would recommend checking this one out. This is really fun. This one's worth a look. On Blu-ray this week, we got Booksmart. Definitely recommend that one. We got Men in Black International. I heard not great things, but I'm not interested either way. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988 is getting a Blu-ray release. Ma from earlier this year. That's the one with Octavia Spencer. I heard actually not great things about that either, but I'm going to still give that a look. I missed that in theaters. Dogtooth is coming out. I guess this is some sort of new edition. Kino Lorber is putting this out. It's got a kind of a cool cover. I feel like they could have done a little bit more with that. Alps is also coming out on a new Blu-ray release.
Nice.
Of course, It is getting a re-release. That's on 4K. This is the It from 2017. It looks like there's a Batman box set that's coming out. This is the 80th anniversary 18 film box set. 18 film box set. So it's like the animated ones. So it's pretty much all the Batman animated ones that came out over the years.
Wow.
Including Mask of the Phantasm, which was maybe one of the best ones. The Wind, Demons of the Prairie. This is a folk horror movie. I don't know if it actually came out. I saw it at a festival, but I don't recall it getting a proper release. Maybe it did. I think IFC put it out, actually. I wasn't huge on this one.
I like the idea of this. So there's mild interest on my part.
It's a super slow burn.
I would imagine so.
And to me, it just wasn't like the payoff just really wasn't there.
Gotcha.
The 1990 It is also getting a new Blu-ray release because of course it is. Darlin from earlier this year, which is that's the sequel to Lucky McGee's May. That I was a little disappointed with as well. It was okay. Cold Blood from earlier this year is coming out. That's the Jean Reno one where he's like a hitman, some sort of assassin.
All right.
Catching Faith coming out. That's that faith-based football movie.
Hell yeah.
Catching Faith 2 also coming out on Blu-ray.
Oh shit! Why didn't they just do a box set?
I don't know.
Damn.
Missed opportunity.
Oh, guys.
That's pretty much all I have. Oh, I'm sorry. How could I have forgotten I Got the Hookup too?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember I Got the Hookup? When did the original I Got the Hookup come out? I mean, it was probably early 2000s or late 90s. 98.
98, yeah.
Yeah. And they waited till this year to release I Got the Hookup too.
And is anyone
Master
from
P.
the original?
Yeah, Master P.
Is he's still in it?
Yeah. He's still like the main guy, I think. I mean, at least according to the box art. Any Criterions this week?
Oh yeah, we got one. It's a new 4K restoration, getting the old Blu-ray, and that's Fist in the Pocket from 1965. And really, the only thing besides the new 4K restoration is there is a new interview for the Blu-ray with a film scholar, Stefano Albertini, and then everything else is just what originally was on the DVD version.
Got it. All right.
Good.
I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @filmpulsenet and @filmpulsekevin. And if you have a minute, please consider reviewing us on your podcast platform of choice. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name is Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.